Welcome back to another impactful episode of the PSDA podcast. We are back for a week 12 wrap up with our favorite guest. Seems like our only guest sometimes, but
hey, I'll take it. If you're the only, you got to be the favorite. Just don't tell me that means I'm also your least favorite.
No, I won't say that at all. Patrick Kelly is here, everyone, to provide a week 12 recap. As I just said, I'm repeating myself, Patrick. Just forgive me. I need popcorn.
It's all right. It's Friday.
Yeah, but before we get started, shout out to Ed Camp Palmetto. We had Ed Camp Palmetto on March 25th. Phenomenal day. Over 80 educators from across the state came and convened on the beautiful campus of Columbia College, and we had a great time learning from each other, dancing, giving away door prizes, eating popcorn bar, barbecue, donuts. Barbecue, donuts.
And singing. There's some high-quality karaoke.
There was some high-quality karaoke. So, but anyway, let's get back to the matter at hand. Patrick, what can you share with the audience about last week?
Well, things are picking up in the General Assembly. They are on the clock. There's only 6 weeks remaining in this session. And so to say that things were moving fast and furious in the past week was an understatement. The House of Representatives had been off for a week for furlough. And apparently they all got really good naps because they came back and they were passing legislation left and right and working around the clock to really move things. And part of what's compelling them is they are up against the crossover deadline to get bills from one chamber to the other in order to get that to the governor's desk this year to get signed into law. And so you saw a heavy priority, especially in the House, on moving legislation this week. They've got one more week to move legislation to the Senate.
I think the highlight this week was Representative Neal Collins' bill.
Absolutely.
Paid parental leave. I think the bipartisan support for that was remarkable.
Yeah. So Representative Collins' bill, H3908, would provide school employees in South Carolina, not just teachers, school employees with 6 weeks of paid parental leave for the birth or adoption of a child. This is similar to the benefit provided to state employees at the end of the 2022 legislative session. This is a game changer in terms of recruitment and retention of teachers. South Carolina would be the only state in the Southeast offering a paid parental benefit of this nature, of this 6-week scope, and one of only a handful in the entire nation. This is pro-family. This is pro-educator. And so it's exciting to see this. The House Ways and Means Committee reported the bill favorably to the House on a 22-0 vote. So this has bipartisan support. There are currently 33 sponsors on the bill, including the leadership of both parties. But the calendar is still a challenge. And so if people are excited about this, they need to reach out to their representative right now. As soon as they finish this fantastic podcast, they need to send an email or make a phone call, because in spite of all that support, if the bill doesn't pass the House by the end of this coming week, it will face significant procedural hurdles to get to the governor this year. And this is a policy that needs to happen sooner rather than later on behalf of every educator out there looking to expand their family in the next 12 months. They shouldn't have to wait on this to become law.
Yeah, you heard it here first. So House Bill
3908.
Make sure you contact your elected official and encourage them to vote yes on this bill. We need that passed by the end of this week.
And it's important to note that 4 districts are already doing this. Big shout out to Florence 1, to Rock Hill, to Spartanburg 5, and Spartanburg 6. The leadership in those districts made a point and a priority this year within their budgets to find a way to provide this benefit to their educators, and they have done it. The superintendent from Rock Hill came and testified before the House Ways and Means subcommittee this week and said that for him, it was something that was just important to support his staff and their families, but it's also for him a huge recruitment tool against Charlotte, since they run right up against it, and North Carolina doesn't provide this benefit. So those 4 districts have really pioneered and piloted this program to show that it can work in South Carolina. Now it's time to make sure that every school employee in the state has access to this benefit.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, Spartanburg 6 also they offer childcare to their I think they just piloted, or not even piloted, for a couple of years. They offer child care for some of their employees, too. I believe it's Spartanburg 6 or Spartanburg 7.
Yeah, you're starting to see some district leaders in South Carolina really lead, not just in our state, but nationally, in understanding that the key to providing a high-quality education for every child is ensuring there's a high-quality teacher in every classroom. And the key to doing that is making sure that that teacher has the support to be able to have a healthy work-life balance. And for teachers that are parents, that starts and stops with making sure that that individual can care for their own child. I have seen too many colleagues walk out of this profession in the last 18 years because they ultimately made the decision, when they weighed the pros and cons, that they could not continue to care for the children in their classroom and do right by the child that was in their home. And teachers shouldn't have to face that. And so I applaud superintendents that are figuring out ways to support teachers and families. But I'm glad to see the General Assembly taking the lead on this because at the end of the day, our state constitution does place the obligation to provide a free public education to all children squarely on the General Assembly. And so kudos to Representative Collins and the other 32 sponsors on this bill for this family-centered pro-teacher policy.
Yeah, we're excited about that. So let's do our part, teachers, and encourage our elected officials to pass this piece of legislation. Before we wrap up today, Patrick, anything else you want to share with our teachers in South Carolina and the few that may be in Alaska?
Yeah, I mean, two other things that are notable for the week ahead, because we're really at the point in the legislative session where you got to focus on what's right in front of you, because every day, with only 18 legislative days remaining, every day is valuable. In the House of Representatives this week on Tuesday, a House Education Committee will be taking up S39, a bill that would create education scholarship accounts in South Carolina. Not so coincidentally, it was reported in the news today that former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, who has been a big proponent of vouchers and ESAs and choice programs, will be in South Carolina at the State House on Tuesday. So that bill is coming up. PSDA supports school choice, as we talked about this week with the passage of an open enrollment public school bill in the House. But PSDA believes that true choice requires 3 A's. It's got to be affordable, accessible, and accountable. And S39, as passed by the Senate, falls short on each of those metrics. And so it's really important for supporters of not just public education, but supporters of the constitutional statement in South Carolina that the General Assembly must provide a free public education open to all children. It's important for them to reach out to the members of the House and let them know that if they're going to pass S39 or a policy of this sort, it's got to be accessible to every child. That is a state constitutional obligation. And as S39 is written, a private school that is receiving a student or has an application from a student that has an education scholarship account, that school can, I'm not saying that they will, but they can deny admission to the student on any grounds other than race. So they could deny student admission because the student is disabled, because of the student's academic aptitude, because of the student's sexual orientation. And that's not something that can be done in South Carolina's public schools, because that's in contrast and direct conflict with what our state constitution requires. And so this is an opportunity, this is the moment to share those concerns with members of the House. So that's what to focus on the House side this week. On the Senate side, the Senate will not be meeting in full session. They're going to be carving out time for the Senate Finance Committee to do their work on the budget. By the end of the week, we will have a Senate Finance Committee version of the state budget. And what's really important here is the House of Representatives invested a lot in their version of the budget, $260 million in additional funds to state aid to classrooms and a $2,500 increase in the statewide minimum salary schedule on every cell. But the Senate found out last week that they've got an additional $530 million to work with that the House did not have, because South Carolina state revenues continues to grow quicker than what was projected last year. So PSDA firmly believes, given the scope of the teacher shortage in South Carolina, that since the Senate has additional money to work with, not only should they at minimum maintain what the House did, they should look to go even bigger and bolder. A few weeks ago, Senator Tom Davis and Senator Mike Fanning had a discussion. I don't want to call it a debate, but they had a discussion on the floor of the Senate where they talked about the need to raise teacher salaries by, and I quote, $5,000 to $6,000. I don't know if $530 million gets you there, but I bet it gets you closer. And so it's important to reach out to members of the Senate Finance Committee and ask them to take some of that additional money and invest it in educator salaries so that we can fill the positions that our students need.
Yeah, great information, Patrick, on the forecast coming up. PSTA members, you have your marching orders, so make sure that you communicate with your elected officials. We are appreciative of Mr. Kelly spending time with us once again. So make sure you share, follow, and download this podcast. This has been another impactful episode of the PSTA podcast. I'm Craig King, your host, and I'll see you soon. Take care.